Welcome to the testing world. In previous session, we have seen how we can create project and package. And inside the package, we have created a Java file. So we are going to start programming in this session. Here, we will understand what is class, variable, and constants. So I'm moving to Eclipse, and here we have a Java file. When we create a Java file, by default, class is created inside this Java file. As of now, we need not to bother about what do you mean by the class. We just need to understand that whatever the code you want to write in Java, that must be inside this class body. So here my class body is starting from this point and ending at this. So whatever the code we want to write in Java, that must be inside this. In the class, normally we write four items. One is variable, constant, method, and constructor. So first of all, I'm going to show you a variable. So variables are created as same as we are doing in C programming language. First we define the data type. So like we have the different data types, first basic data type we are going to use int. I'm creating a variable int I. So semicolon. All the lines, all the statements, all the lines must be ended with the semicolon. So here we have created a variable with the name I, and the data type of the variable is int, means it can hold only integer value. I'm going to create one more variable like int j and giving the value 20. So here we have created two variables, one is I and other is j, and both having data type integer, so means it can hold integer value. What is variable? So variables are used to hold some data. Value of the variable can be changed, means variables are used to hold some values and these values could be changed later on. So as of now we have created two variables. In one variable we did not define any initial value, and in the second variable we have defined the initial value. So if we are not defining the initial value, that is fine, because it's a variable, we can later on assign it. We can change its value. Default, we don't have any value, later on we can assign it. And if you assign initial value, that is again fine. Initial value is this. Later on, if required, you can change it. So variables are used to hold some data. Value of the variable can be changed. It's going to hold only integer value. So we have seen that's a int. Integer can hold non-decimal values. Non-decimal value means in which we don't have any decimal points. If you want to store this decimal point value, it's going to show error like the variable is integer. You cannot hold decimal values over here. If you want to hold the decimal values, two data types you can use. One is float and other is double. So double K. So if you want to store values with decimal points, you can use either float or double. What is the difference between the float and double? So I'm going to show you the difference between the float and double. Float is going to take 4 bytes of space. Means when you create a variable with the float data type, it's going to take 4 bytes of space, and if you use double, so double is going to take 8 bytes of space. So here we can see if you want to store small decimal value, you can use float, and if you want to store a big decimal value, you can use double data type. So here we can see either we can use float or double. We have seen like for storing decimal values, we can use either float or double. In the same way, to hold numeric values, non-decimal values, we can use either byte, I'm creating byte B, sort, S, int, long. So these all four can be used to store non-decimal values. Then what's the difference between the byte, sort, int and long? So here byte is going to take 1 byte of space in memory. If you want to store very small value, you can use byte. And if you talk about how much data we can store it, so the value is 2 raised to power 8 to 2 raised to power 8 minus 1. So 2 raised to power 8 means you can store 256 minus 256 to 255. So here, if you want to store the value from minus 256 to 255, you can use byte. In the same way, sort is going to take 2 byte of space, so it can hold bigger value as compared to the byte. And here int is going to take 4 byte of space and long is going to take 8 byte of space. In the same way, float is going to take 4 byte and double is going to take 8 byte of space. So we have created many variables over here with the different data type. We have the different data types like byte, sort, int and long. Byte, sort, int, long are used to hold numeric data type with non-decimal values where we are not using decimal point. And float and doubles are used to store values with the decimal points. We have one data type which is char, but whenever you are using char variable, you can store only one character. So here you can see we have created a variable C of character data type and it's going to hold one character at a time. Now in the same way we have one more data type which is boolean, which is going to hold either true or false. So boolean data type can be used to hold true or false value. So here we can see I have created many variables with the different data types. We are going to use all these data types while working with the Java programming language. And these are the variables. So I recall it again. Variables are used to hold some data. Value of the variable can be changed. Now I'm removing few variables. I'm just leaving these two variables. So variables are here. Next is constants. So constants are used to hold some data. Value of the constants cannot be changed. It's quite similar to the variable. The difference is that in case of the constants, we cannot change the value. So to create the constant in Java, we need to use final keyword. So I'm using a keyword final, and here on the both places we have used final. So on one place we have assigned the initial value, on other place we are not assigned the initial value and we are creating constants. Here you can see on one line we are not getting any error, but on the other line we are getting error because constant mean we are defining some initial value which cannot be changed. So here we have defined the initial value, that is perfectly fine, but here we have created a constant and did not define the initial value. So we have to define the initial value like this. Now error is removed. Here understanding is like that whenever we are creating a constant, it's mandatory for us to define initial value. Constant means we are defining this value which will never be changed. And to create the constant, we are going to use this final keyword. If you are defining variables, so like here on this line, I'm just defining variable. We are not using final keyword. So if you are defining variable, you define initial value, that's fine. If you don't define the initial value, that is again fine. But in the case of the constant, initial value is mandatory. So here we have seen we have created a variable, constants, and all the code that we want to write that must be inside the class body. If you try to write this code, I cut this and try to write this code outside the class, it's going to show error because all the code that we are going to write must be inside the class body. And all the lines must be ended with the semicolon. So here we can see this is ended with the semicolon. These lines are called statements. So if we talk about here, we have a class with the class name A, class A. We have created one constant. Constant is created by using final keyword. The name of the constant is I. It holds the value 34. Data type of the constant is int. Also, we have created a variable with the name L. The data type of the variable is long and we did not define any initial value of this variable. So that's all we have for the variable and constant. In next session, we are going to create functions and we are going to call them. So that's all we have for this session. Thanks for watching this video.